In this month's edition of Orange Nation, the go-to guy for the Cowboys looks to lead OSU into the postseason. A senior cowgirl makes her mark in OSU basketball history, and the #1 wrestler in America walks off the mat in winning fashion following his last match in Stillwater. Orange Nation TV starts right now. Hello and welcome into the first spring edition of Orange Nation. I'm Tyler Thomason, he's Robbie Crowder, and as winter sports on the OSU campus wind down, spring sports are off and running.
The sound of bats cracking is beginning to echo through Stillwater. The wrestling Pokes just wrapped up their regular season, and both basketball squads are in position to make postseason appearances.
Well, he leads the Big 12 in scoring, averaging nearly as many points as his jersey number. He scored at least 30 points 4 times and is projected as a top 15 NBA draft pick. With a resume like that, who wouldn't want to pay attention to this guy? Robbie took a closer look at this guy they call Mr. Anderson.
Anderson. Mr. Anderson.
James Anderson is the big man on campus for the OSU Cowboys. The junior out of Junction City, Arkansas, is averaging just under 23 points a game. With his ability to take over games for the Cowboys, it's no wonder why the media loves to say his name. His play this past weekend earned him Big 12 Player of the Week and 3 wins for the Pokes. James has stepped up this year alongside senior Obi Manello and sophomore Keaton Page. The play of James this season is no surprise to Page.
Makes things easy. I mean, it might not be easy on him, but he's one of those guys that such a great player, makes everybody on the floor around him better. So, I mean, we go into every night knowing that the opposing team, I mean, their main thing is how to contain James.
The freshmen for the Cowboys are lucky to be playing with such a talented player in Anderson. Starting point guard Fred Gully realizes that he is playing with one of college basketball's best.
He does it all for us. He knows when we need points. He can come in and produce points. He can play defense. He can guard whoever he wants to. I mean, it's amazing. Sometimes we get in trouble because we just kind of give him the ball and try to see what he's going to do next. So, I mean, it's just a joy, just feeding off him and playing off him.
James hasn't decided whether he will declare for the upcoming NBA draft, but other teams in the Big 12 are hoping that he does.
Oh, yeah, it's natural. I don't blame him. I don't blame him. I don't blame him a bit. I don't blame him a bit. That will be decided between me and James at the end of the year, what's best for him, absolutely. But I don't blame them a bit.
James's abilities are unmatched in the Big 12 and maybe in the nation. Coach Travis Ford has no doubt in his mind that James is one of the game's elites.
You look at his numbers, you look at what he's doing number-wise, free throw-wise, rebounding-wise, steal-wise, block shot-wise, three-point field goal percentage-wise, defensive-wise, and we've won 19 games on the youngest team in the Big 12. I think he has a little bit to do with that.
With 3 games remaining on the Big 12 schedule and 2 being in the top 25, the Cowboys are going to rely heavily on James's leadership to carry them into the postseason on a high note. With more about Cowboy basketball, let's go to Tyler on the interview set.
Thanks, Robbie. I'm here with the voice of the Cowboys, Dave Hunziker, to talk a little Cowboy basketball. And Dave, we just saw a piece on James Anderson. You've been the voice of the Cowboys for about 9 years now. Is he the best that you've seen?
You know, I think he's definitely one of the most explosive scorers that we've had. And it's interesting because with this team, he has to be that type of scorer. Sometimes it's hard to compare players from different teams because the roles change based on who's around you. For example, the Final Four team back in 2004 had basically 4 NBA guys on it. When you think of the Graham twins and John Lucas and Tony Allen, so there could be a real even distribution of the scoring load. On this team, James Anderson has to score. There's no doubt he's one of the best, and I think in the last month, Tyler, he's really taken off because Travis Ford talked to him about not playing with his head down when he would drive the ball into the lane and get second and third defenders. They wanted him to understand that if he would pass the ball, once he got into that double or triple team, one of his teammates would get a wide open shot. That addition to his game has been huge.
Anderson, the Cowboys faced the top-ranked Kansas Jayhawks this Saturday. When you look at the Big 12 Conference and the competition that the Cowboys are going up against, how tough is the Big 12 Conference this year?
It's the toughest it's been since I've been here, and I think the reason for that is you have a number of teams you know, not just 1 through 8 or 1 through 9, but you've got several teams that are competitive even down toward the bottom of the conference. You look at what Colorado's done and what their improvement. They don't have that many more wins to show for their improvement. I think the big magic to the Big 12's overall strength has been the bottom of the league is better than it's been probably in the league's history.
How much of a factor does the lack of height in Oklahoma State's rotation, how much of a factor will that be going forward?
It hurts. I mean, and I think it really hurts them in the next couple of games because you're playing teams that do have size. Kansas, for example, that's a big, big concern because they certainly can go pretty big across the board. They're physical. They're very aggressive defensively. I mean, they'll try to come in here and just maul the Cowboys. And then when you get in the NCAA tournament, it's so much about matchups, especially when you're down toward the middle of the seeds in your region. It is so much about who do you draw and do you match up well with them to be able to advance, and then hope that luck carries on as you advance through the bracket.
Well, hopefully we'll get to see the Cowboys make a deep run in the tournament. Switching things over from the basketball scene to the football scene. Spring football is just around the corner, and Cowboy fans are surely wondering about positions, recruits, and also about the addition of Dana Holgorsen. What do you know about Dana Holgorsen, and how do you feel about the new offensive coordinator here for Oklahoma State?
Well, spring football can be pretty boring, frankly. Just going to call it what it is, and uneventful. And you know, we used to joke that we'd have the annual burning of the spring football depth chart about 3 practices into the fall because it many times didn't mean much, especially after you got past the first team. This year, though, will be the most entertaining spring football session I've ever experienced because you've got such a brand new look offensively coming in. Dana Holgorsen's had a tremendous run of success, not only at Texas Tech, but certainly at Houston, with a style of offense that's similar to what Mike Leach operated at Texas Tech. But he runs the ball more, which fits more with what Oklahoma State does. So I'm excited. There'll be a transition because personnel-wise, you know, it's never an immediate successful transition typically where you just hit the ground running because you don't have players necessarily recruited for that style of offense. But in the long term, with what he's done, I think they'll have some short-term success. And I think in the long term it's very exciting because they continue to have better and better athletes.
When you look at the Cowboys next season, obviously Zach Robinson, the playmaker he was, is no longer with the team. Who do you expect to see under center for the Cowboys next season?
Well, Mike has point blank told me, Gundy, that it's Brandon Whedon's job to lose. And I think what he did against Colorado had a lot to do with that. I think if you would have put that same question to Mike Gundy back in October, he would have said, you know what, I'll bet it's one of these true freshmen that ends up playing sooner rather than later. I think he's comfortable with him now. We'll see how he does in the spring and in the fall, but it seems to be his job to lose. He's the guy.
Well, September 4th will be here before you know it when Washington State comes to town to take on the Cowboys for the opening of the football season. Dave, we appreciate you taking the time out to give us some insight.
Oh, my pleasure.
So as I said, spring football events will be beginning soon. So we'll take a look at the upcoming spring football schedule right before we take a break. Stay with us. You're watching Orange Nation TV.